In the early days of horror video games, we had become accustomed to pixelated elements and unusual sound tones to develop a sense of tension from playing. Developers needed to create strategies to work within the limitations of games development during the 8 and 16-bit console eras of gaming. However, these concepts played an important part in the evolution of video games development that allowed for the adaptation of new ideas once hardware became powerful. As hardware and software began to evolve, so did the development of the video games industry, knowing quite well that the new gradual evolution in technology would allow creators to take full advantage of the powerful newfound abilities they had at their disposal. There were a number of titles that made full use of the new technology that laid the foundations for future games and ideas to come to light, some of which would inspire some of the greatest games and franchises to ever exist in the games industry. While we had become accustomed to a flood of mainstream titles from popular genres with sports, fighting, beat-em-ups and racing games, but there was still one genre that had yet to make that leap and transition into the new era. This new era would become the perfect gateway for horror games to evolve and take full advantage of the newfound technological capabilities to produce some of the most groundbreaking and scariest games to ever exist. id Software would be one of the first development teams to create innovative attempts of the first-person shooter with Hovertank, and later with Wolfenstein 3D that combined combat with exploration elements to defeat enemies and survive. The latter would have been seen as a very violent game for its time. The FPS genre, while still in its infancy, began to evolve alongside the horror games genre, allowing development teams to be more creative with the new technology at their disposal, allowing them to work on early concepts using 3D and polygon-based elements that would be influential to the future of video games development. Wolfenstein 3D and Alone in the Dark would be among the first games to see real success from their ideas during this era, but nothing could prepare the gaming world for what was about to be unleashed. Doom, the game that would change the gaming landscape and that of the entire horror genre, when it released in 1993, broke new grounds to scare players in ways that had never been seen before in video games. You are a Marine and the last known human known to exist on planet Earth after being invaded by the underworld consisting of an unrelenting attack from demon Hellspawn. You must overcome all odds by defeating these grotesque and demonic entities at all costs, utilising an arsenal of devastating weaponry that would become staples in the FPS genre to the current day. Doom was revolutionary for its time, that fully expanded on the early concepts seen within id Software's Wolfenstein 3D, while adding in a multitude of visual aesthetics, combat mechanics, weapons and monsters that created a visual feast with some of the darkest atmospheric vibes that are unparalleled, which set the stage for all first-person shooters and horror games to follow. Doom made great use of these features to provide a mix of combat, action and exploration, to find items, ammo, keys and secret rooms, or areas to find and unlock many of the game's devastating weaponry to aid in your quest to obliterate the demon Hellspawn. Doom would also be the first ever game to allow players to run around, tearing enemies apart while using a chainsaw. Showing the game's unyielding approach to hyperviolence that was extremely controversial yet widely accepted in games media, as it became one of the first original games to be aimed at a much more mature audience of players. No other game in history has made such an impact on the video game industry and horror genre as much as Doom, that spawned many sequels and mods, along with an abundance of FPS clones that also saw success within the games industry. Doom was the game that made the shotgun the go-to weapon in first-person shooters, with its authentic sounds and devastating damage effects to obliterate enemies. Almost every first-person shooter we see today, both new and old, all incorporate the weapon selection features and some variant of the shotgun made popular in Doom. Doom 2 would also introduce the almighty double-barrel super shotgun that would be even more powerful and devastating towards enemies. This shotgun variant would also be used in the iconic Quake 2 and later Doom sequels, making it a must-have weapon to survive the onslaught of enemy encounters you will face as you play. If we look at the many popular and successful games inspired by Doom, such as the Quake series, Duke Nukem 3D, Half-Life, The shotgun is a prevalent accessory and the must-use weapon of choice for enemy encounters. With all of these elements in place, we can gain a clear understanding as to the relevance of the legendary Doom game series and how it influenced real horror elements in video games. Doom, Doom 2, Final Doom, Doom 64, Doom 3, the Doom remake released in 2016, Doom Eternal, with versions on the Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance and other system ports of the game, and many mods developed by the creators and fans over the years have all been instrumental in shaping the video game industry. We'll dive more into the history of the Doom franchise and explore its impact on the horror genre in gaming, where we will look at the games that define the series and many inspired titles that define the genre of the first-person shooter. The development of Doom was heavily influenced by id Software's previous game, Wolfenstein 3D. Wolfenstein 3D was released in 1992 and was one of the first games to feature fully 3D environments. It would also be among the first ever FPS games to incorporate the use of textures to create more detailed environments, a tactic never really seen in video games at the time. The game put players in the role of a soldier, trying to escape from a Nazi prison, searching for items, weapons and hidden secrets, all with the aim of surviving the onslaught of relentless enemies. The success of Wolfenstein 3D inspired the developers at id Software to push the boundaries of what was possible with 3D technology. This led to the development of Doom, which featured more advanced 3D graphics, improved gameplay mechanics, and a darker, more horror-focused theme, with a rich and intense atmosphere not seen in a game until that point. Doom built upon the foundation laid by Wolfenstein 3D and improved it in many ways with the use of detailed 3D textured environments, realistic sound effects, and atmospheric music, which helped to create an immersive and engaging experience for players. The game's focus on fast-paced action and intense violence also helped to set it apart from other games in the genre. The success of both Wolfenstein 3D and Doom inspired the developers to push the boundaries of what was possible with 3D technology and improved upon it in many ways, resulting in a more immersive and engaging experience for players. Doom was first released in 1993 by id Software and quickly gained popularity among gamers for its fast-paced action, intense violence and horror elements, seeing players fighting off hordes of demons that have been unleashed from hell. The game presented a list of campaigns, each with varying levels and secrets to find that increase in difficulty with more weapons, puzzles and boss battles to encounter. What is most notable about the original version of Doom is the astounding selection of ports it received on other platforms and gaming consoles that still continues to this day, with the latest Xbox and PlayStation gaming consoles. Both the Super Nintendo, SNES and the Game Boy Advance handheld console received ports of the game, which was mind-blowing, as early 16-bit consoles were never considered capable of running extensive 3D games to such a degree. Doom is considered as the most ported title ever in the history of video games, which stands to its revolutionary development and design that it can be integrated with virtually any games platform out there. Doom 2 was released in 1994 and expanded upon the first game with more levels, enemies and weapons, while keeping with the same formula that made the first game revolutionary. The addition of new levels, enemy types, and most importantly weapons, made for a more intense and action-filled experience. Doom 2 would also introduce a new upgraded double-barreled super shotgun, which was more powerful and could deal insane damage to enemies when playing. Both the original Doom and Doom 2 would later be compiled together in a PlayStation port of the game in 1995. This version stood out amongst other ports of the games that were seen as the closest to the original games, with excellent visuals, sound effects and new hidden levels which were exclusive to the PlayStation version alone. It is still considered as the best official port of Doom on any system still to this day, as it remains as close to the original more than any other system, and with the addition of the extra hidden levels, especially with the iconic Club Doom, only heightens the longevity of the experience. The Sega Saturn would also receive a version of Doom to make use of its controller peripherals like the PlayStation version. Final Doom was released in 1996 and featured 2 separate episodes, each with 32 levels, and it would be the final exclusive release of the series by id Software to utilise its development engine and features. Future iterations of the Doom series would mainly be seen with the fan modding communities that gained access to all of the game's development tools, features and assets to create their own versions of what they would see as the ultimate Doom experience. These tools are still being used to create new gaming experiences on modern platforms today. Many of these games can be found on popular marketplaces like Steam. Furthermore, Doom's impact extended beyond the gaming world, as it influenced the creation of the term Doom clone to describe other FPS games. Even with the new era of Doom seeing great success, its modding community continued to thrive, spawning numerous fan-made levels, mods, and even entirely new games. The franchise also laid the groundwork for esports, with competitive tournaments and the creation of the deathmatch multiplayer mode. That wouldn't be the end of Doom, as new entries in the series would be created on later systems over the years. Doom 64, released in 1997, was a console exclusive game released on the Nintendo 64 that featured enhanced graphics and sound compared to the previous games. The weapons and enemy sprites looked very different from those seen in earlier versions of Doom, but the game managed to keep with the same style of previous entries, with devastating weaponry and insane violence. Doom 64 has been remastered in recent times, making it more accessible to fans who previously could only play it if you owned an N64 console back in the day. So if you're a fan of the earlier titles, you owe it to yourself to play this version also. When Doom 3 was released on PC in 2004, it broke new grounds with some of the greatest yet darkest and eeriest visuals ever seen in a video game. It was a visual masterpiece, drenched in a rich atmosphere, creating so much tension with its dark vibes and even darker environments to explore, unsettling players like never before. The use of switching between your flashlight and weapons only heightened the suspense and terror, as you needed light to see into dark tunnels or rooms, and couldn't see enemies lurking nearby without it, but it would also leave you vulnerable to attacks, which created even more panic-inducing terror. Doom 3 would become the first true FPS horror title of the modern era of video games. The Doom series would lay dormant for a number of years until seeing a remastered port of Doom 3 being brought to modern consoles in 2012 on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 under the BFG edition, giving access to the main campaign story along with all of the expansion add-ons in one complete package, but would remove its core feature of switching between the flashlight and weapons, which didn't appeal to fans of the original game looking to relive the terror-filled experience. Doom's influence continued to grow in the years that followed, with sequels and adaptations enhancing the franchise's legacy. However, it was the 2016 release of Doom that brought the series back to the forefront. This installment retained the core elements that defined the original Doom, such as frantic action, gruesome yet powerful weapons and relentless combat. The game's brutality and hyper-violent gameplay appealed to a new generation of gamers, while also catering to the nostalgia of long-time fans. This new era of Doom modernised the series with stunning graphics, smooth gameplay and renewed focus on the single-player experience. The incorporation of glory kills encouraged players to engage in close combat, making the violence more visceral and satisfying. It showcased the franchise's ability to adapt to contemporary gaming standards without losing its identity. Doom has continually evolved and maintained its influence over the years. The 2016 release revitalised the series, reminding gamers of its significance in shaping the FPS genre and gaming culture as a whole. Doom's brutality and hyper-violent gameplay have become iconic aspects of its legacy, proving that even in the modern gaming landscape, there's still a place for a demon-slaying space marine. Doom Eternal, released in 2020, is the highly anticipated follow-up to the 2016 remake of Doom, and has had a significant impact on the franchise and the gaming industry. It continues the series' tradition of insane brutality and hyper-violent gameplay while pushing the envelope even further. Doom Eternal improves upon its predecessor with refined gameplay and new features. The game's emphasis on fast-paced combat, over-the-top weapons, and glory kills remains intact, providing players with intense, blood-soaked battles against hordes of demons. However, it also introduces many new gameplay mechanics, like the meat hook, which allows the player to grapple onto enemies, adding a layer of mobility and strategy to the gameplay. The level design in Doom Eternal is more expansive and intricate, providing a greater sense sense of verticality and exploration. This, coupled with a more complex narrative and deeper lore, adds depth to the Doom universe while maintaining the frantic action that fans love. Doom Eternal's multiplayer mode also adds a unique dimension to the franchise, allowing players to engage in intense battles, seeing players choose different modes, even being able to control the demons and pit them against the Demon Slayer. This competitive mode offers a fresh experience while still embracing the series' signature ferocity. Doom Eternal has had a significant impact by taking the franchise to new heights. It continues the tradition of insane brutality and hyper-violent gameplay, solidifying Doom's place in the gaming pantheon and demonstrating that the series can evolve while staying true to its roots. The Doom franchise has left an indelible mark on the gaming industry since its inception in 1993. It is a pioneer of the first-person shooter genre and has significantly impacted the evolution of video games, particularly in terms of gameplay, graphics and cultural influence. When Doom first graced the gaming scene, it revolutionized the way players engaged with the medium. It introduced the concept of fast-paced, visceral FPS gameplay, where players assumed the role of a space marine tasked with battling hordes of demons and monsters from hell. The game's iconic 3D graphics engine, level design and modding capabilities set a new standard for the industry, inspiring countless developers to push the boundaries of what was possible. Doom franchise also played a significant role in shaping the horror genre in video games. It was one of the first games to feature realistic 3D environments and enemies. The game's use of atmospheric music, sound effects and lighting created a tense and eerie atmosphere that helped to immerse players in the game's world, allowing enemy characters to hide in the shadows and surroundings, making it more difficult to determine where attacks could originate from, only heightening the tension as you played. The game's use of gore and violence also helped to create a sense of fear and horror among players. Doom's influence can be seen in many other games that followed. For example, the Resident Evil franchise, which is one of the most popular horror gaming franchises of all time, was heavily influenced by the success of Doom, as it too was first envisioned to be a first-person horror game, but due to limitations of the PlayStation's hardware, the development teams at Capcom found it difficult to incorporate many of the game's ideas without fully removing its core identity, which led to its change in focus of gameplay styles to eventually being inspired by Alone in the Dark. The use of atmospheric lighting, sound and gore found in Doom can be seen in many other horror games similar to Resident Evil. One of the things that has kept the Doom franchise relevant over the years is the large number of game mods that have been developed by creators and fans. These mods add new levels, enemies, weapons and gameplay mechanics to the game or to create completely new gaming experiences, all from Doom's iconic blueprint. The Doom game engine is so robust that it is widely used to develop many mods and standalone games that are still being released and played by gamers to the current day, which is a testament to how much the development of the original Doom has inspired the industry on a wide-scale level. The Doom franchise has impacted the industry more than any other in history, particularly in the first-person shooter and horror genres. Its use of atmospheric music, sound effects, lighting and gore created a tense and immersive atmosphere that helped to shape the horror genre in video games. The large number of game mods that creators and fans have developed have also kept the franchise relevant and popular over the years, which also results in the original Doom games being released on pretty much every available platform over the years and continues to be the most ported series to other devices seen in video games history. The Doom franchise not only had a significant impact on the horror genre, but many iconic games were born from its heavy influence, with titles including Duke Nukem 3D, Alien Trilogy, Quake, Quake 2, Unreal and Half-Life, among many others. These franchises are among some of the most popular in the games industry. Duke Nukem 3D was released in 1996 and featured a similar style of fast-paced action and intense violence, reflective of that seen in Doom, and it was one of the first games of its kind in the FPS genre to portray personality towards the main character, having his own quips, one-liners and unique adult-themed humour that made the experience more relatable to the player, as Duke would speak and react to events and items you interact with as you play.
Shake it, baby.
The game also had a dark and gritty atmosphere similar to Doom's. Alien Trilogy, released in 1996, was another game heavily influenced by Doom and became one of gaming's most terrifying experiences during its time, making excellent use of atmospheric music, sound and lighting that helped to create a tense and scary atmosphere similar to Doom's that is used to great effect to survive against the threat of the deadly alien xenomorph that lurk and lie in wait throughout each environment you explore. It became one of the most successful movie franchise games ever to exist. In many instances, Alien Trilogy is often considered to be much darker and scarier in atmosphere compared to Doom, as the environments can be so dark that it is impossible to see threats from a distance, as monsters often hide in the shadows, making the experience all the more terrifying. Quake, released in 1996, also developed by id Software, sees the developers creating one of the first ever full 3D shooters, with all elements, items, weapons, enemies and environments being fully rendered with improved 3D graphics and gameplay mechanics, building upon the foundation laid by Doom to explore lush, dark environments, destroying hideous monstrosities with devastating weaponry, solving puzzles while trying to survive long enough to escape the encounter. Quake 2, released in 1997, was another game heavily influenced by Doom, but changed its gameplay structure, moving away from the restricted level-based design to make use of more open-world type environments, allowing players to have more freedom over the areas they explored. This game also featured enhanced graphics and improved gameplay mechanics, including the ability to jump and crouch, while adding a story to the gameplay, with Earth and other planets being invaded by the Strogg, with the goal being to counteract and invade the Strogg planet and base of operations to put an end to the never-ending invasion once and for all. Both Quake games have seen recent remasters with massive improvements to visuals, gameplay mechanics and controls, with access to all previous add-on pack content and the addition of new levels and scenarios to present new experiences to fans of the series. Unreal, released in 1998, was another game heavily influenced by Doom. It was considered as one of the best looking FPS games for its time, and mainly would require the use of a high-end 3D graphics and visual effects add-on card for the most effective gameplay experience. The game's use of atmospheric music, sound and lighting helped to create a sense of immersion and tension similar to Doom, and Quake, with its own unique campaign following a prisoner on board a ship that crashes on an uncharted planet with the aim of escaping from a savage race of technologically advanced reptilian humanoids. Half-Life, released in 1998, is one of the most iconic first-person shooters of all time that also took a lot of its inspiration from Doom with its use of gameplay mechanics, but also helped to evolve the style of FPS games with more interactive features and adding in a unique story to give players a better understanding as to the events of an alien outbreak, which unfolds as a result of a failed lab experiment that would inevitably lead to the continuation of the story and its legendary sequel, Half-Life 2, that was released in 2004 on PC and later in 2006 on the Xbox and PlayStation 3. The release of Alien vs Predator for the Atari Jaguar in 1994 was groundbreaking in its early influences on gameplay diversity and choice. The game allowed players to take on the roles of three distinct and iconic sci-fi characters: the Marine, an alien xenomorph, and the Predator. This innovative approach to multiple playable perspectives set the stage for future games and had a lasting impact on the games industry. Playing as a Marine offered a traditional first-person shooter experience, putting players in the boots of a space Marine, facing the terrifying xenomorphs and technologically advanced predators. The perspective allowed for intense suspenseful combat scenarios and survival gameplay, with the character being significantly weaker, relying heavily on their weapons and wits to survive encounters. Playing as an alien provided a unique, fast-paced experience, showcasing the creature's agility, stealth, and the ability to crawl on walls and ceilings. This offered a refreshing change from the typical shooter perspective, introducing players to the concept of asymmetrical gameplay. The Predator's gameplay, with its advanced weaponry, cloaking abilities, and honor-based hunting mechanics, provided yet another distinctive experience. It emphasised strategy that rewarded skilled and patient players. Alien vs Predator for the Atari Jaguar was an early pioneer in giving players the freedom to choose their in-game experience and character perspective, setting a precedent for the growing trend of multiple protagonist narratives in modern gaming. Its influence can be seen in subsequent titles that offer players diverse playstyles and the ability to explore the same universe from different viewpoints. To this day, Alien vs Predator is only accessible to players who own an Atari Jaguar console or through that of emulation. Blood, a PC game released in 1997, was heavily influenced by Doom, one of the most iconic first-person shooters of its time. The game's development studio, Monolith Productions, drew inspiration from Doom and used its formula as a starting point, while also adding unique elements that contributed to Blood's distinctive character. Blood retained the fast-paced, action-packed gameplay that made Doom famous, offering players intense, explosive gunfights against hordes of grotesque enemies, but it incorporated a dark and morbid sense of humour and atmosphere. This macabre humour is a hallmark of the game, making it a unique selling point, setting it apart from other FPS titles. One of Blood's standout features is its arsenal of weapons, which included unconventional and bizarre choices like a napalm launcher and voodoo doll, allowing a twist to the traditional shooter formula. The game also featured impressive level design with intricate environments that encouraged exploration, much like Doom and Duke Nukem 3D, with blowing up walls and destroying surrounding environments to eliminate threats and find hidden areas. Furthermore, Blood integrated a horror element into its gameplay, drawing from horror literature and cinema, which gave the game a distinctive vibe. The protagonist, Caleb, was a memorable character, embodying the anti-hero persona that was popular in many action games of the time. Blood managed to carve out its own identity by infusing dark humour, unconventional weaponry, and horror elements into the traditional first-person shooter formula to create a classic that demonstrates how games of that time built on the foundations of the genre to create unique and memorable experiences. The game also saw a sequel with Blood 2, The Chosen, that would change up its visual style to make use of more 3D focused elements. Like many other classics, Blood has also seen a resurgence in recent times with an updated remaster, making it more accessible for gamers to play on modern systems and technology. System Shock 2, released in 1999, was influenced by Doom but took a completely different direction, emphasising atmospheric horror and deep storytelling over fast-paced action that Doom was known for. The game's developer drew inspiration from Doom's first-person perspective, but crafted an experience that was more immersive and narrative-driven. Like Doom, System Shock 2 was a first-person shooter, but it incorporated survival horror elements, psychological horror, and a complex narrative. The game featured a sci-fi setting, drawing inspiration from movies like Alien and Blade Runner. The story was delivered through audio logs, environmental storytelling, and interactions with non-playable characters, providing a sense of depth and immersion. In contrast to Doom's straightforward level design, System Shock 2 featured interconnected environments with puzzles and complex level layouts, fostering exploration and a sense of vulnerability. The game's RPG elements allowed players to customize their character's abilities, contributing to a more personalized gameplay experience. Atmospheric horror was a key component of System Shock 2, with the game's eerie sound design and unsettling visuals and psychological elements, creating a tense and foreboding atmosphere unlike any other game for its time. The presence of a malevolent AI, Shodan, added a layer of existential dread to the experience, making it distinct from the demon-slaying action of Doom. System Shock 2 drew from Doom's first-person perspective, but shifted its focus towards atmospheric horror, immersive storytelling, and RPG elements. It is a classic horror genre icon and influenced games prioritizing psychological terror over action. The Doom franchise has had a significant impact on the video games industry, particularly on the horror and first-person shooter genres. No other game in history has made such an impact that paved the way for many other games in the first-person shooter genre that helped to shape the video games industry as we know and see it today. Its influence can clearly be seen in many other iconic games that followed, including Duke Nukem 3D, Blood, Alien Trilogy, Quake, Quake 2, Half-Life, Unreal, the System Shock series, and many modern FPS and indie titles that we see today. Furthermore, Doom's impact extended beyond the gaming world, as it influenced the creation of the term Doom clone to describe other FPS games. Its modding community continues to thrive, spawning numerous fan-made levels, mods, and entirely new games. So you can bet on seeing more sequels and Doom clones in the future that will continue to iterate and evolve this ever-popular genre for many years to come. And to understand more of these concepts seen with Doom, we need to dive more into the future ideas that have been inspired by this legendary series, which you can learn more about in this next video that will look at the many game iterations that are being used to expand the FPS genre in even more innovative ways.